Welcome to Significant Brothers. I'm Cray.
I'm Brad.
And I'm Chase.
And today we are talking about failed spy attempts. So when I first picked this subject, I thought there would be many cases of just very funny failed spy attempts. And there are some out there. But sometimes I was researching and I was like, oh, here's a failed spy attempt. But then it ended up just being very sad. Like, oh, they gave this one spy money so they could frame him for a murder, but then he ended up using that money to go away to Aruba to go murder someone, and then the story ended there, or something like that. So I was like, well, that's not very funny. But
I remember that James Bond.
But I did finally find something that was great from the Cold War era. Are you guys ready for it?
Yes.
Dun, 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 dun. You all ready for this?
All right. So there's a two-part story. Part of it is based on a book called Esther, the Cold War Kitty. And then there's also a CIA memo called Views of Trained Cats, which is codenamed Acoustic Kitty. And basically, the CIA memo explored ways of surgically inserting cats with microphones and transmitters in order to spy on people.
Seems inconspicuous.
Yes. But near the same time, a book was, well, it was written, it was never published, called Esther, the Cold War Kitty. And apparently only three known existing copies, or only 3 copies exist in the world, because it was never published.
I thought you were saying kitty like a child, not kitty like a small cat.
Oh no, it's a small cat. Esther, the small Cold War cat.
Kitty is like very niche word for children.
Hey, kitty.
Well, when I hear kitty, Kiddy, I think child.
So, since there are only 3 copies in the world, I couldn't actually gain access to the book. I did find a great article written by Elise Coswell, who's part of Improbable Research. I don't know if you guys have heard of Improbable Research.
Yeah, I have. I frequent that site.
So, Brad, have you heard of Improbable Research?
No, I have not.
They are the same people who put on the Ig Nobel Prize.
Oh.
Yeah.
I love those people.
So it's like that they have a magazine and other, I think they have a podcast as well, but they also have the Ig Nobel Prizes. For those who don't know, it's basically research that's supposed to make you laugh and then make you think. They have titles. The person who won the physics 2015 Ig Nobel Prize was titled Duration of Urination Does Not Change with Body Size. Or there's literature one in 2015, which was, a universal word? Conversational infrastructure and the convergent evolution of linguistic terms.
I remember I shared that fact before, and people didn't believe me.
I think I also shared that fact before, and people were like, really? And I guess now that I'm looking at it, I think it's a legitimate piece of research, but I guess it is.
Wait, which one? The or the body size urination?
Huh.
Oh,
yeah.
Because I know with body size urination, all mammals basically pee for the same amount of time across the board.
Wow. Wait, like even platypuses?
Elephants, platypuses, they generally, when they urinate, pee for the exact same amount of time.
That's interesting. I guess the volume would change.
Yeah, obviously.
So anyways, Improbable Research, Alice Coswell published this article, which was a commentary on Esther, the Cold War Kitty, and the Acoustic Kitty project. And she was basically, she released some parts of the book, and she was saying, I wonder if these 2 projects ever had anything to do with each other. Because the story of Esther, the Cold War Kitty was quite like the Acoustic Kitty project. It featured Esther, who basically was a spy for the CIA, and was meant to spy on all of the, like on Stalin, on Khrushchev, on the KGB leadership. Basically, it starts out with Esther in 1947 taking a nap on top of some clothes, and then in the next morning, Esther accidentally gets packed into a U.S. spy's luggage. One, because apparently this U.S. spy was a house guest, and two, because, I quote from the book, Esther was notorious among her friends for being able to sleep through almost anything.
For her
Which,
friends.
I don't know how many friends Esther has, and everyone's like, oh, Esther, you're always sleeping through everything. So Esther wakes up in Vienna.
Wait. This is a CIA agent, so they had like a transatlantic flight?
Yep. She's Esther's traveling along with the spy all the way to Vienna, and she then wakes up, and then the ambassador and the spy realize that they have a cat with them.
And the cat starts recording?
Well, at first they pet the cat as people do, but then they're like, we have a great idea. We can equip Esther with a very small camera strapped to the underside of the cat's leg, and we can let it into the Russian embassy here in Vienna, and then we can spy on everybody.
Guys, I have such a good idea. We can have these carrying cases so you can bring your cat on a plane with you, and it's way easier than shoving it in your luggage.
Well, apparently even Esther, because they couldn't figure out how to get Esther to take pictures, because this wasn't like a live stream thing. So Esther actually made one herself and made a paw-activated mechanism for taking pictures.
No.
The only problem with this fictional cat is that people were like, Esther could have been the best spy if that cat only came decades later, because no one noticed the camera around Esther's leg because she was so fluffy, but conversely, no one could really make out the pictures because the hair obscured the camera.
Wait. Is this a fictional story?
This is a fictional story.
Okay, I must have missed that when I disconnected, because I'm like, this just seems bonkers.
I thought about spinning this as a real story, but I was like, I'm not sure how believable this is.
You had me going up until they made the camera that the cat could. I was like, no.
It was a smart cat. I can kind of see why this book was never published.
I don't think there's enough character development.
The CIA memo called Views of Trained Cats was a real thing. Acoustic Kitty actually had a real cat that they trained for sound. They actually had microphones either attached to the cat or surgically put into the cat. Yeah. And so...
Where would you plug in the USB? Oh, no.
Apparently they wanted to use the tail as a sort of an antenna of sorts, but I'm not sure actually how that worked.
Who's running this operation, you? That seems like something that I feel like we would come up with.
I know, it sounds like a very just sloppy execution, I guess. But similar to Esther, the Cold War kitty, they trained the cat for sound, and they dropped it off near a park, and they said, go to those two men over on that bench and, pick up what they're saying so they could listen in on the microphones. And so the cat started to walk towards them and then got ran over by a taxi. So I guess it wasn't like Cold War kitty at all. But yeah, I think that mission was scrapped after the cat got ran over.
Oh.
So that is the story of Esther, the Cold War Kitty, and the Acoustic Kitty project.
I'm going to be talking to you guys about a certain person called Margriet Zella. She was born in the Netherlands, and she held Dutch citizenship. That matters for the story. So you might not know who Margaret Zella is, but I bet you know her spy name, which I'll get to in a second. So Margaret Zella grew up in the Netherlands, met a Dutch soldier via some mail-in sort of. Well, so I'm already ruining this. So this is just total background. She moved to Indonesia with a Dutch soldier. She had a kid. She got divorced, and then after that, she moved to Paris, where she was kind of a like early 20th century version of a stripper, where she would promenade around a stage, scantily clad, and she had like a stage persona where her name was Mata Hari. Are you familiar with Mata Hari?
No.
I am only familiar with that name just because I saw it popped up when I was researching, but I don't know this story.
Oh. So her stage persona was Mata Hari, a Javanese princess. But she was not, remember? I said she was Dutch.
Oh boy, did people didn't take that seriously, did they?
No, but the pictures that I saw, she looks like she has kind of like she had like a darker complexion of like darker hair, and people were like, well, okay, I've never seen a Javanese person before. But also, if she was the princess, I assume she wouldn't be in Paris. World War One started, and so she had freedom to travel in between countries because she was from the Netherlands, and Netherlands was neutral at this time. So she was seen as like not a threat. So she could go to Germany if she wanted, or France if she wanted, and France is where she lived. But in this time, she fell in love with a Russian pilot who was fighting for France. And so he goes to fight for France, and he gets injured, and he's blind, and he crashes. Well, sorry, I think I got the order wrong. I think he crashes and then he's blind. That's not like cause and effect. However, I think he probably could have crashed if he was blind. So he's injured, and she wants to go see him. So she asks the French military, can I go to the front line to the hospital where he is? And they said, no, you don't have a reason to because you're not French. And so then she was like, ah, man. They're like, but if you want to go visit him, we'll let you spy on the Germans, and then you can go visit your lover. And so they want to get information on them.
Sounds like a good deal. I'd take it.
Yeah, it's like she doesn't have a lot to lose at this point. Because her kind of career as Mata Hari has been like not going so hot because she's been getting older, and like I guess the scene is changing and she failed to keep up with the demand. I have no idea. So she's not as
Okay, I'll
popular
take
as she
your
used to
word for
be.
it.
And this is like she doesn't really have any family. And so this one guy is really all she has left. So she's like, yeah, I'll be a spy. So she traveled to Madrid, Spain to go talk to Major Arnold Kalla, who was a major in the German military. And she wanted to talk to him so that she could somehow coerce him into letting her talk to the the German royal crown. But in order to do that, she had to sell information to him about the French. But instead of
Oh.
selling the information in order to gain access for the crown, she sold the information for 20,000 francs. And so the information that she sold was like the sex lives of like certain politicians and just generally useless information to the Germans. So after they got the information, they were like, okay, 20,000 francs and go away. Like, if that's all you have and that's your strongest card that you're leading off with, they didn't really want much to do with her after that.
Yeah, but 20,000 francs. I don't actually know how good that was. But that sounds like a lot of money.
Sounds like a lot of money.
It was a lot of money back then. But here's the thing now. Now that she has the 20,000 francs and no access to the royal crown, she goes back to Paris defeated and like, what do I do? And so the Germans are still a little bit, I guess, miffed to a certain point, and they talk on the radio saying, we have this spy here who just sold us information about the French, and they're saying it on a certain radio frequency that they know that the French could get on, And so they're saying it out loud for the French to be able to pick up on it and be like, wait a minute. You don't think it's the very same spy that we just, hey, and they like get word that it's actually Mata Hari who sold the information because they gave like very descriptive, like, she looks exactly like this and she was from France.
Oh,
And so they
no.
totally sold her out.
Oh, jeez. This probably doesn't end very well for her, does it?
No. So when she's in Paris, she gets arrested and they put her on trial. And it turns out at this point, France was losing the war and they need a scapegoat. And so they use her because they don't know what else she sold. They're like, oh, so you've been lying this whole time. And so they blame her for France losing the war and 50,000 dead soldiers.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
they say
Pretty harsh.
she's at fault for all of that. And she's like trying to tell them, like, no, guys, I just did it for money. I just wanted money. And she's like, I love France and I was trying to do my best, but I didn't know how to get access to the crown. And so then they said, well, then, Mata Hari, if you're not a spy, then why is your name actually Margaret Zella and you're not from the Indonesia?
Oh, no.
You're from the Netherlands. And she's like, no, it's true, but that's my stage name. But they're like, no, I think it's your spy name.
Oh, no.
that's crazy.
Yeah,
This sounds like it'd be a bad, like, rom-com military drama.
yes. I think it would be pretty bad. I mean, it could be funny, but let me tell you, it gets a lot worse.
Oh, no, it gets worse?
So she wrote to the ambassador of the Netherlands who was in Paris saying, you gotta help me. I don't know what I was doing. And he didn't want to help her. But then her last card, she was like, I know what I'll do. I'll write to my Russian French pilot lover asking him to testify for me because he knows who I really am. And then he wrote back to her saying that he doesn't care about what happens to her and that he never actually loved her.
Oh.
And so the entire reason that she wanted to do this in the first place doesn't really matter because he says he doesn't love her. So she kind of gives up. And then she was executed by a firing squad.
It's pretty rough.
That is pretty
Hope
rough.
she gets better.
So there is certain like classified information though, because the French in this trial denied that they had ever hired her as a spy, but we now know that's not true. But there's other classified information that the French army has kept to be released 100 years after her death, which was in 1917, and it is now the year 2017,
Oh.
and is going to be released in October. So,
Oh.
sorry that I don't have
That's
any
so
more
exciting.
classified information, but this is the year. Yeah, so really tragic life. She wasn't really much of a spy. She failed at everything she did, and she became really hated for it. Poor woman.
Wow. A pilot who did not reciprocate her love. Talk about some turbulence, am I right?
Oh.
Yeah. And you know who's just as deceiving? And it's weird, but I feel like the robber in Settlers of Catan.
Oh, I knew you were going to force one.
We do this house rule where the first 2 times around when you're rolling, if you get a 7, the robber is totally like doesn't do anything to you. But then on the 3rd time around, if you roll a 7, the robber is in play. So just like, you know, like whose side is he on really?
I give that 3 out of 5.
All right, well you can come up with a better one.
Back in the early 1900s, born in Prussia into a large family, this man's path to clergy was not looked on well by his family. His name is Dietrich Bonhoeffer, which I think is a pretty cool name.
That's a great name.
Do you guys like the name Dietrich?
Yeah, that's pretty good. You said he's Prussian?
He was born in Prussia, technically under the German Empire at this time.
Yeah. That's where the royal crown that I just got done talking about, that's like, you know, they were from Prussia.
Anyways, he wanted to go on to the ministry mostly because his mother's father was a man of the cloth. His dad was a psychologist and a neurologist, and the rest of his family, they were just really book smart people. So he kind of took the really weird way out by wanting to go into seminary. So he went over to America. He studied at a seminary there. He learned a lot about Black Christianity and how they are very community oriented, which was very different than how they were doing it over in Germany. But he didn't like the seminary. He learned a lot more from the churches over there. Anyways, he returned back to Germany in 1931. He became a lecturer in systematic theology at the University of Berlin, and he was ordained as a pastor at the age of 25. Now,
Wow.
a couple of years later, the rise of the Nazis happened. And a couple of days after Hitler was named the Chancellor, Bonhoeffer delivered a radio address in which he attacked Hitler and warned against the country slipping into the cult of following a leader who could turn out to be a misleader. And he was cut off on air mid-sentence. This is kind of where him and the Nazis kind of went head-to-head. So later, Hitler was like, I'm a Christian, I should make my own church. And so he made a contract and wanted all of the churches to sign it. It was called the Bethel Confession, and it wasn't good. But what made it really not good was the Aryan Clause, which was basically, Jews suck, and you should not let them be in your church. And Bonhoeffer's like, no, this is bad. So he started the Emergency League, which was just a group of churches, Euro-wide, that were like, we're not going to do this type of thing. Jews are cool, and so is everyone, and screw you, Hitler. And the main group of this was the Confessing Church. So, slowly, he made more friends all throughout Europe, and he became at greater odds with the Nazis. He was eventually banned from Berlin. And in 1938, Bonhoeffer made contact with members of the German resistance because of his brother-in-law, Hans. There was an internal group in there that was seeking to overthrow Hitler, and they thought he was valuable because of his connections around Europe. So they were already tracking Bonhoeffer wherever he was going. Anyways, he couldn't publish anything, he couldn't speak anything, and so they thought, oh, you're in the German resistance now? This is cool. You must be a pretty swell fellow. And so, yeah, he joined in 1941, and he was involved in some of the 1943 planning plots against Hitler. And are you aware of any of these plots against Hitler?
Was there one about a briefcase?
I watched the movie Valkyrie.
Yeah. That's
Wasn't
also
Valkyrie fiction?
No, that's
No, I don't
Inglourious
think so.
Bastards.
So, like, some of these plots, like, they had given some alcohol that was to be delivered on a plane that Hitler was flying on, and the plane was to explode, and he would have died. Basically, there was some, there was really no alcohol in there. There was more like gasoline and other explosives, and a fuse was supposed to dissolve, and everything was supposed to blow up. And it did work, except for the fact that it was too cold and it wouldn't detonate up in the air. And then in another one, Hitler was supposed to take a tour of this weapons museum, basically, or a weapons facility, and a person was going to be a suicide bomber. And he had a 10-minute fuse set in his coat jacket. Because Hitler was supposed to arrive. He was supposed to walk around for 10 minutes. And so what happened was, he showed up late, and what was supposed to take 10 minutes, he finished in 2 minutes, and then left. And luckily, the person was able to put out the fuse before it detonated in his jacket. But Hitler made it away. Anyways.
Jeez.
Yeah, that was the one, the Valkyrie, right?
Okay.
I honestly can't remember.
That sounds really tense, though. Wow.
But ultimately, Bonhoeffer weighed this whole thing like, oh, I'm a Christian. Murdering's obviously not okay. He had written before, he ultimately questioned, for the responsibility of a man is to ask is not how he is to extradite himself heretically from the affair, but how the coming generation shall continue to live. Is it okay to do a little bit of bad so goodness can continue to live? Or, when a man takes guilt upon himself and responsibility, he imputes his guilt to himself and to no one else. He alone answers for it. Before other men, he is justified by dire necessity. Before himself, he is acquitted by his conscience. But before God, he hopes only for grace. Which is, it raises the whole moral question, like, is assassinating Hitler a cool thing to do?
Well, I mean, it's pretty cool, but is it moral?
Is it moral? But unfortunately, later, they were at Bonhoeffer's father's birthday, and Hitler had sent someone over to give an award to Bonhoeffer's father, and everyone's like, oh crap, there's a German officer in here, we might be screwed. And then they got a call, and yes, German soldiers were on their way, and Bonhoeffer was captured.
Wait, to give
And he was
give the
killed.
award though, right? Was it like a giant oversized check?
No, it was like the highest German honor, because his father was also a professor. And yeah, then they found out, yep, sorry Bonhoeffer, you're getting taken away. And then he was sent to jail. He did some kind of cool things in jail, wrote a lot of letters. A lot of it's published.
I heard he wrote a play called Springtime for Hitler.
But yeah, he was killed a few days before the end of the war in prison.
Ooh.
Never made it out.
Oh, bummer.
Now, Brad, you were in a play called The Beams Are Creaking, right?
I was in a play called The Beams Are Creaking. I played a seminarian student and Bonhoeffer's brother-in-law.
Weren't you also a Nazi radio announcer?
I also was the Nazi radio announcer. Yes.
Whoa! That's just like real life, except you're not a Nazi.
It was a good. It was a good play. It was a good play. I really liked it.
I enjoyed it.
I wish I could
would-
recommend
yeah.
it to people, but like I don't even know where this is being put on, or if it's being put on again, I don't know.
I don't know, but Bonhoeffer basically, yeah, it was the moral question of, okay, if we act too soon, another Hitler will rise and take Hitler's place. And if we act too late, well, cool. He still killed a bunch of people. He was going to lose anyways. And so I think he, along with the other people, tried to find the perfect moment. It's like in Catan, when you're in third place, someone you don't want to win is in first place. And so you help the second place person try to win, so Hitler doesn't.
And you still end up losing, nonetheless.
Yep, self-sacrifice.
So I'm guessing that if someone asked Bonhoeffer if he would kill baby Hitler, he'd probably say no.
He probably would say no.
Because then another Hitler would have happened either way.
Cray, would you kill baby Hitler?
No.
I would probably steal baby Hitler and try to raise him right.
Yeah, I'd probably put him somewhere else, but I'm kind of under the belief that, people don't necessarily make history, but like movements and ideas do. So like a Hitler would have happened if Hitler didn't exist, I think. I think we would just be saying a different name. Although I think those are two just different schools of thought. So I reserve the right to be wrong.
Also, I mean, it's like there were so many bad leaders like Mussolini, and he wasn't a lone bad man. He wasn't the ultimate evil of World War II. There were so many of them.
Stalin.
And I think, yeah.
Though he did have a soft spot for Esther the Cold War Kitty, so I'm not sure that's all bad.
Anyways, that is the short story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer.
Thanks for listening, everybody. You can keep up on our significant happenings by subscribing to our newsletter on tinyletter.com/significantbrothers.
You can also find us on iTunes, Google Music, and plenty of other podcast aggregate services.
If you want to tweet at us, our Twitter handle is @significantbros. If you want to email us, it's sigbrotherspod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Oh, like Naboo from Star Wars?
Did I say Naboo or
Do you mean
I
like
meant to say Nerubian?
I thought I said Nabooian.
Did I?
I think you meant, yeah, but you said Nabubian. Which I think is even funnier because this person is apparently his stripper.